spreading seeds to spreading chemicals. Any questions, Sue?
All right, yes, we do. So I think people are always curious, Devin, how much would these different drone pieces cost?
Oh, great question. So most of the drones that we sell are anywhere from $30,000 to $45,000.
And is there a life, like how long do they last? 10 years, or would they use them for just a couple years? Is there a life expectancy for the drone and its different pieces?
I would say that most of them are planning to use them for about 5 years or a little bit longer. So,
Okay.
and I would like to mention too, to anyone that thinks that sounds expensive, um, a lot of farmers are paid $400,000 or $500,000 for tractors and combines. So in the scheme of farm equipment and what farmers are used to buying for farm equipment, a drone is actually very affordable for them.
Good point. Thank you. Okay, Jessica is curious, Devin, about you mentioned that chemicals are used to improve the health of the plants growing. Are you familiar with any, like, what specific types of chemicals, and then how much is sprayed on the crops that are growing?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the main use for drones is two products, two different chemicals. One is called a fungicide, and that's for like fungus that grows on plants that would affect the health of the plant. Like a very common fungus is called rust on corn. So like a rust on a corn will cover the leaves with like a fungus, and so it affects the plant's ability to do photosynthesis. So it needs to be sprayed in order to kill that fungus. And as far as like the rates, a lot of the products are anywhere from 2 to maybe 10 ounces per acre. So an ounce is really not very much, and that is sprayed across the whole entire acre.
And I learned that an acre is about the size of a football field. So you can imagine the very small amount spread out over that whole large
Yes,
space. Okay, Devin, we
yes.
have a video up that you had Devin and Evan worked together to provide us some video clips that we can see these drones in action. So if you want to tell us what's happening, that would be great.
Yeah, so right now we're just refilling the drone. So it came in with an empty tank and we changed the batteries. There, I'm carrying the batteries away, and Evan is filling it right now with a hose. It only takes about 1 minute to refill the drone. And as soon as he gets done refilling here in a few seconds, there he's walking back, and then the operator just hits resume, and then the drone takes up and flies away to continue the mission. So here you can see two drones working in a cornfield. Um, one is being followed, yep, right there, and then the other one is coming up on the right-hand side. So if you get a feel for the size of this field, it took us about 2 hours to spray it with two drones. It's a quite large field. Now this example is actually a pasture, so a cattle pasture, and this drone is being used to kill the weeds in the pasture. There was a lot of thistles in this pasture, which cows do not like thistles. So we were able to go in there with a drone with a chemical that kills thistles to make the pasture more palatable for the cows. So this is a seeding video. Oh, in this video, there's a drone being used to seed a cover crop over the top of that corn maze.
Devin, could you tell us a little bit what is a cover crop and why would you want to seed it over the corn maze?
Great question. So usually a cover crop is used so that there is a living plant in the field after the harvest. So if you drive by a field that's green in November, likely it had a cover crop planted after the main crop. Now, in the specific instance of the corn maze, that was just being used so that there wasn't as much mud and it was nice and green on the pathway through the corn maze. All right, Sue, should we move to the section about the parts?
Yes, let's do that. Let's
All
talk about
right.
the parts of this drone and how you maintain them and all of the different pieces.
Yeah, so if you can come over here with the camera, these drones are actually these ones right in front of you here are sold, so we're delivering those. When we get the drones in, we have to set them up to the customer's account, and there's some assembly required and all that. So we do that for the customer and then deliver them to the customer. We also do training as well. So some farmers are nervous about, operating a drone because they don't know how to. So we make sure that they're very comfortable and they understand how to operate it when they buy it from us. So behind me here is a lot of our parts. Um, so if there is something that goes wrong with a drone, one thing with farming, you have to be very timely with what you do in the field. So like if you have an insect problem in your field and the grasshoppers, let's say the grasshoppers are in the cornfield and they're just chewing on the corn like crazy, you have to obviously take care of them as soon as possible. So in that case, if there was a problem with the drone, you would have to get it fixed and operating as soon as possible. So we have a number of different parts. Like this is actually this is a motor. You guys can see that. So we can replace all the individual components on these drones. And we try to keep everything in stock so our customers have what they need.
So what sort of training, Devin, do you have to be able to troubleshoot and make those fixes if needed?
So we get training from the manufacturer and also just our own experience. We kind of try and document things that we need to learn and pay attention to. I might touch quickly on, while we're on training, I might touch a little bit on the licensing. So you actually need a drone pilot license to fly these drones. And if any of the students watching haven't looked into that, it's called a Part 107 license, and that'd be a good thing to look into. You can actually get it when you're 16 years old. So it's a fun license to have.
And do you have to like take a test or how do you receive that license?
Yes, you have to take a test at an airport, and you actually get a card from the FAA that says drone pilot. So
Fantastic. Okay, well, that's a
yeah,
new thing for me. Maybe I should look into that as well. Okay, so Devin, we did have, I think, a time-lapse video of maintenance on a drone. Is that something you'd want to show now?
yeah. Let's just show that quick.
Okay, and then this features Evan, who's our camera guy today, but you get to see what he looks like on how he's doing some maintenance.
So what he's doing here is just going through the motors on the drone. So there's actually 8 motors on this drone. He's checking them all, checking the propellers, and making sure everything is up to spec for that. We have customers that bring us their drones in every year just to make sure that everything is good to go for the next year. And now he's working on the spray tank. So he's just cleaning it and make sure nothing's leaking and everything works.
So that was a time lapse. So it was definitely sped up. If you were to put it in real time, how long would that take?
Probably, usually we spend maybe 3 or 4 hours on something like that.
Sure. And do some farmers do that on their own, or do they rely on you to do those service?
We definitely have some of each. So
Sure.
some farmers do it on their own, and then some would prefer to pay us to do it. So
Okay, now here's a question that maybe a few other people are thinking. Have you ever had any drones crash and they just have not been able to be repaired?
to answer the first part, yes, we have had drones crash. The second part, we've always been able to repair them so far.
Okay, well, maybe those people did not pay attention when they were taking their license and had a little accident. Okay, so here's another question. In the videos we saw, you mentioned corn and there is a pasture. What are the most common crops that drones are used to seed or to spray?
I would say actually those are the 2 most common things is cornfields as well as pastures. There's also just, in Minnesota, we have really a lot of different crops in Minnesota. We have edible beans like kidney beans, black beans, we have sugar beets, we have potatoes. And here, this is actually from Michigan, but these are some vineyards, and we do have some vineyards in Minnesota. So this drone is spraying some grapes to help prevent disease in the grape fields.
Fantastic. That looks like a fun vineyard to visit. Okay, so we also had on our list that we were going to talk a little bit about mapping a flight, or how do you decide, or pilot, I guess, how do you fly these drones in the right place? So I think there
Yeah,
was another spot in your facility there that you could show us some details about that.
Yeah, so we'll just go into our workroom back here. And this is going to be what a lot of the pilots use to control the drone. So you can see this is the controller. I'll just turn it on here quick. And you can use these sticks on the edges to fly it manually, as well as map out your fields and everything on here. So once this gets booted up, we'll show you guys how that works. You get down on that, Evan?
So while we're getting this up, Devin, if you can multitask, there's been a couple of questions. Are drones similar to tractors where there's a couple different brands? Like, maybe people are familiar with John Deere and
Mhm.
Pace or International, or is there basically just kind of one type of drones that are used in agriculture?
Yeah, we sell two different brands. They're called XAG and DJI. They're green and red, or sorry, gray and red. And we do sell two different brands. So yes, to answer that question, there is multiple brands. And a lot of people have maybe heard of DJI drones. They are the most popular drone in the world right now. And a lot of people don't know that they make agriculture drones, but they do.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so here we go. We've got the screen on here now. Look at that light. Okay, can you guys see that all right?
That looks good to me.
Okay, so if we want to just map out a field quick, we can just go here to add point. And we can actually just build a field based off of Google Maps like this. So once we have this field built, you can see it's got the routes where the drone will fly right here. And we would just hit save and then start, and the drone would fly out, and then it would start flying up and down these routes in this field until it ran out of product in the tank, and then it would come back and land at our landing site where we would refill it, just like that video that you saw earlier of the refilling. And then that would continue throughout the whole entire field. Like a field this size might take 2 or maybe 3 loads to do a small field like that.
And that was a question, Devin, when you were refilling it, was that just water or what were you refilling the drone with?
That was with fungicide for corn.
Okay,
Yep.
got it. And then you also said that you were changing out the batteries. How
Yeah.
often those batteries need to be changed or charged?
We need to change those out every load. So we can actually go over to, we have kind of a station where we have that all set up, and we can show you guys how that works, if that works.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do that.
Let's just go right here, Evan. So this is an example of we call this a tender, and the farmer would put this on a trailer or in his truck, and he will use this to mix the chemicals as well as to fill the drone. So this hose right here can be used to go and fill the drone. So he can just walk up and turn this valve on this hose and fill it up. There's also over here in this area, he would have a generator, and that would be used to charge the batteries for the drone. So with the generator charging the batteries, you can constantly charge your batteries and keep up with your drone all days. So you're never waiting for the batteries to charge.
Okay, that is a fantastic feature. I feel like most of us have had to wait for things to charge. So if
Yeah,
that doesn't happen, that
you
is
can't wait
helpful.
for things to charge. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, well, we have just about 7 or 8 minutes left, Devin, and we have a few questions, but just to keep you on task, we're all on task. But there have been a couple questions about this as a profession, as a job. So if you want to tell us a little bit about how you picked this to be your job and your profession and what sort of education you needed, and then also you don't have to tell us exactly, but is this a profitable business or career to be involved in? Do you make a lot of money, or what are some of those pieces?
Sure. I guess for me, it was just a passion for agriculture as well as for drones. And if you if students think that they have that passion, there's going to be a lot of opportunity in this field going forward because it's so new. Like there's just going to be a lot of adoption for these. And if you're interested in flying the drones, there's opportunities to start businesses doing services for the farmers, as well as working for a farm, that owns drones. I know there's more and more like large potato farms and larger farms that are buying drones for themselves, and they need operators to operate them. So that is an option. If you want to be a service technician for the drones, if you want to work on them, or a salesperson, there's just going to be more and more opportunities in this field going forward. As far as profitability, I would say it's similar to other types of technology. And for myself, it's not really a get rich quick scheme, but it has been profitable.
Right, good. Thanks, Devin. So a few more questions. Have you guys ever used drones on an apple orchard or a vegetable farm? You just mentioned potatoes, but just curious if, we grow a lot of apples in Minnesota and some vegetables too. And then when you are working on pastures, do you ever have a concern that animals might get accidentally sprayed or somewhat involved there? So apples,
Yeah,
vegetables, animals.
good questions. I have not done apples. I have done pumpkins. I have done carrots. And I know some of our customers do apples. Actually, I think this is apples in this video playing right now. Um, so yes, there's been many different types of crops sprayed with the drones. And back to the question about pastures, when we decide what chemical, when the farmer decides or the rancher decides what chemicals to put on the pastures, on the label on the chemical jug, it actually tells you, it specifies what animals could be in the pasture, or maybe it will say wait 2 days until after you spray to let the animals back in, for the animals' health.
All right, great. So we're always trying to keep everything safe and healthy. So here's a question, Devin. Why are drones used instead of like tractor sprayers or other techniques that are available?
So a lot of times, like in all the videos that we were showing of the corn is like 10 or 12 feet tall. So it is too tall for a standard tractor to be able to get in there, and you would run it all over. So it's best if you can be in the air when you're treating those types of crops. Same thing with like the tree crops or the vineyards and other things like that. So here you can see how thick these beans are. Actually, these are potatoes. You can see how thick the potatoes are in the video. Um, it would be damaging to drive a regular tractor in that field.
Sure, that definitely makes sense. Do you guys, so this is another question. Sometimes drones are used to take pictures. We've maybe seen pictures or videos. Do any of your drones do that? Or are they strictly for helping the crops grow?
So we're pretty focused on the big crop drones, but we do sell the small picture drones as well, especially for farmers will use the small drones to make maps of the fields and to help examine the fields and look for problems within the field. So we do have those drones as well. We don't do like the videography ones, for like media or anything. So
Okay, great. Good to know, Devin. Okay, now we had talked before when we were first meeting that you got to go to China for some educational purposes. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
sure. So yeah, I went to China for about a week back in November because both brands that we sell are made in China. If you just want to pan this way, we can go back over here. And they invited the manufacturer of these red drones invited us to come over to China to check out their factory, as well as to give us some training on these drones and just help us understand more about them. So that was a really neat experience, to be able to get out of the country and see a whole other culture.
Are there any companies in the United States that make similar drones, or is China kind of the leader in the manufacturing?
China is definitely the leader in the manufacturing of drones in the world, really. They have over 90% of the world market share. There are companies in the US that are working on them, and I'm excited to start selling US made drones as soon as they become available.
Okay, awesome. Okay, just a couple more questions, Devin. You have that, it looks like a trailer behind you, and it has Tenacity Ag and some information. Besides being sort of promotional or advertising, what purpose does that trailer have?
It doesn't have too much of a purpose. It just we take things around in it. Maybe if we needed to deliver a couple to the customers, we would load it up. So that's really all it's for. But yeah, it makes a nice billboard. So
It looks great. Okay, so this is our final question. What
okay,
is your favorite thing about owning and working with drones at Tenacity Ag?
I would say getting to meet all of the different farmers, in Minnesota and in the Dakotas, like all of my customers, and just seeing all of their different farms and the different crops they grow, and just the world of agriculture is really fascinating to me, and just realizing, that's where all of our food comes from. I would say that is the most exciting thing about my job.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Devin. Thanks for joining us and telling us all about drones and the work you're doing at Tenacity Ag. And thank you, Evan, for being a spectacular camera person. And thank you, classrooms and students, for joining us. And hopefully you learned a few things that you didn't know about drones. We are taking February off from virtual field trips. So there is not one for you to attend in February, but we will have some in March and April. But in February, we hope that you join us for, we're calling it Farm and Food Book Month. So we'll have virtual readings of agriculture themed books by special guest readers. So you can check our website out to see more details for that. But thank you once again, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we hope to see you soon.